Come on in, Greg.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric, and great to see everyone here and a few familiar faces here. And um, I'd say I love Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't know where I was thinking of starting today was, my my faith when I was younger, right before Alcoholics Anonymous, my life didn't go wasn't going too well. Um, I had a lot of arrests. I couldn't keep a girlfriend. I didn't even I barely made it through high school, right? They basically they allowed me to take some college classes, but really they just didn't want me in there, right? They would do anything to get me out of that high school with all the chaos that I was causing, and it wasn't just myself, right? I was bringing down other people with me, and I used to think that like it would be impossible for me to believe in a God because there was just no proof of it, right? I just couldn't see how it could be possible, right? I had met church people, and my reaction to them was really just to completely ignore them, just like consider like this person is obviously too stupid for me to talk to, right? If they actually believe something like that, that's just so ludicrous. I just dismissed them as someone I couldn't talk to. And that grew over time. And the last time I remember really praying was for a baseball game, right? Like we weren't very good at baseball and I really wanted to win. And we had like the three games back to back, different days, back to back days, whatever. Let's just say Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we had a game each for the same team. And the other team was really good. I was young and I remember praying, I prayed fervently for like an hour. I don't remember how long, but like I remember praying fervently that we win the game the next day, right? It just to me it just seemed so impossible for us to win and I prayed this. And the next day we won and I was like so ecstatic. I was like, wow, this prayer thing works, right? But then I did it again that night, maybe not as fervently, but either way, right? We didn't win the second game, right? And as a kid, I was like, it's over. I stopped. I never really tried again. Um, I did go into, I mean, when in high school, I went into Alcoholics Anonymous once, right, on the behest of whatever, some people, and I saw that word God, and again, I got that same kind of thought, right? And it's really just a prejudice, right? That it's just impossible, right? It's just not real. And I didn't realize that, I thought that faith was impossible, right? But I came to realize that no one made decisions for me, right? I had probation officers trying to say, hey, I highly recommend you go to classes because if you don't, you're going to be going to jail. I'm going to take away your car, blah, 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 blah. Right. I had my parents, begging me, right? My parents were around and good people begging me to do the right thing. And, I remember there was even a time my mom had to call the cops on me, right? Like how much that had to, be hard for her, right? I didn't listen to my principals. I didn't really listen to friends, right? I kind of made all my decisions by myself. And everyone else around me was looking at me and like, wow, this person is destroying himself, right? But I had this, right? It's so silly thinking about it now. I had this crazy, insane faith that I knew the right thing to do, right? Even though the fact was, every time I made a decision, it was a bad one. But I had complete faith in my ability to make decisions. And that lasted a while, right? It lasted through a few, troubles, with the law or with whatever, until I got to a really big trouble that, all the other times I had escaped, right? I had gotten away with slaps on the wrist or, doing a little thing here, go to this rehab, right? These little things. And I was able to get by and, I may have been sorry in the beginning for it, but I quickly overcame that, right? I got better real quick and went right back to that same old prejudice of, I don't need anybody else's help. I can do it all on my own. And, it got to the point where it was like, a problem came up and, when the problem came up, the first thing I tried to do was run away, right? Um, I'm sure a few other people in here, but as I've done my whole life, right, is try to get away first, right? If I can get away with this, I just won't tell anyone, right? And I remember like I used to be brutally honest, except when it came, like I would be honest with a lot of things just so that when the time came, I could, and I really needed it, I could lie and people would believe me, right? I was not a good person, right? But I tried to get away and I couldn't. And and when a problem came up, I literally would spend all my time just thinking about how I could fix it. Or I'd, go into my room or wherever at night. I wouldn't sleep. I'd be up all night thinking, how can I fix this situation? And just a side note, even in AA, right? at the beginning of my sobriety, I've been having those thoughts like, I can't go to the meeting tonight. Like, I got to figure out like all these problems in my life. Like, and we all know it's BS, right? Or what I really needed was a meeting, right? Um, but it got to the point where I couldn't solve it, right? I had, tried reading books on how to get out of what I was in. Um, and um, it got to the point where I just gave up, right? There was literally nothing I could do. And I was in this rehab and, everyone, says the serenity prayer in that meeting and I didn't know it, right? Like even if I had heard it before, if it mentioned God, I purposely blocked it out, right? I was just that strong against it. Really, and it wasn't just God, right? It was against anything that wasn't my idea, or what I thought it should be. And as the people were saying it, I was trying to mumble it, right? I wanted to look good in this new place. And eventually it took a few days and I realized that, the Serenity Prayer is right on the wall. And it said, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And in that moment, I won't say, I don't know, maybe you can call it a white light experience, but I didn't really see a white light. But there became this immediate clarity that every single ounce of my being, I had spent the last, I don't know, whatever it was, week or two, trying to get away out of my problems that I rightfully did and I deserved to be punished for. And it was killing me, right? And it seemed so like it was like the most awesome thing, right? To just say it's God's problem, right? Like it's not my problem. I can't fix it, right? Like I had, thought it through and accept the things I cannot change and the courage to change the things I can. And in that moment, and I do think that this is kind of where it starts, right? Is this hope, right? And I always trusted in myself, and I had never gotten to the point where didn't think I had an answer to something, right? I always had a solution, and I had gotten to the point where I was hopeless because I knew that I was the one that had gotten me here, right? And if I could, and I was my God, right? And I was at a point where I could no longer trust my God, and I felt naked, right? Like I felt like what's the point in living, right? Like I couldn't fathom living without a God figure in my life, right? Even though that God figure was me. And I guess in that moment I had some hope, right? I was willing that, hey, maybe this will work, right? I hoped it would work. Right? I didn't even know if it would. I didn't think it would, right? Like I had no faith or trust, but I had this hope. I really hope that'll work, and I just decided I would try it. And you know, you really, and that's really, that part was really important. I didn't realize it till later, right? Because my reasoning, my brain is only going to get me so far, right? It'll, I can, even in real, even trying to, find God on my own, right? It only gets me so far, but I needed that little bit of just that leap of faith, right? I needed to just like have that hope, right? And that's that I look at hope as kind of that beginning, point of faith that maybe, right? And that's all that's required. And it's really amazing if you think about it, right? All that's required is hope that it could possibly work. And and I did, and in that moment I got this clarity, and I decided I was in this rehab, and the things I could change was I could change me, right? And I could work on bettering myself, and I could try to find out who this God is that you all said would save me, right? Um, I remember they brought a guy into the rehab to speak, and before this, I don't know if it was before or after this experience, but I heard him speak, and it's just like I related to him, and he said that God made it possible, and it's just all part of it, right? And if hope is the first step, the next it's like where how do I build on that, right? How do I turn that hope into trust and faith? And um and it really was just from starting to pray and starting to trust, right? I remember I had a lot going on, obviously, in the beginning of my sobriety, and I used to, be not be able to sleep at night, and it used to bother me, right? Because I'd be up thinking all night, and no one else is up, and then I'd be tired the next day, and I just started praying that God help me sleep every night, right? It was loud, and I used to say a lot of like, our fathers or whatever to try to go to sleep. But even that small little prayer every night, right? I realized after a few months that like I did go to sleep every night. And in that small prayer being answered, there was so much like it was a huge thing to my soul, right? To realize like this is something I could rely on, right? I couldn't rely on myself, right? My decisions were always horrible, but this I could rely on. And and again, it got a little bit more towards faith. And um, I was, you know, going to be locked up for a little bit, um, and I decided, right before that was going to happen, I was going to drink. Right, I was um, sober for a while, and I was like, I'm going to drink. And I remember saying, praying to God, I was like, God, I am going to drink on this date, my birthday. Um, and good luck trying to stop me, right? Like, and doesn't sound like a great prayer, but it really is, right? Because it was unleashing it, like, God, I want to stop, but I can't. All right, and what, and then thinking today about like my character defects, right? How they keep coming up, and like, it's what better of a prayer there is. Like, I need help, right? I can't do this on my own. Right, and I said that prayer, and I don't know what made me say it, right? But I was in AA for a while, and I said that prayer, and I forgot about it. I said it about a month before that incident. And I swear that night I'd never even thought about it again, right? Like the thought of that, that one reservation of drink never occurred to me again until that night when I got a call from some random AA I gave my number to, right? Who I'd never heard from or heard from again after, right? And we talked for 5 minutes, and I got off the phone with him, and I just realized, like, wow, like I had every intention of doing that, and it didn't happen. And I mean that, like, and that was just that one more like one more block on the structure, and me saying, I can trust, I can have faith in this God thing. And there's so many, right? Like I remember like, God will never find a wife like not with like my background and that I'm an alcoholic, right? Like and the way I thought and the way I treat other people, right? It would just be impossible. And I remember saying, we're told to pray only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out, right? I remember saying, I don't know where you want me with that, but I trust whatever it is. Guide me toward wherever you want me. Same with the job and everything. And I said all those prayers, and you know, um, the literally the day I got out of jail, I was working in New York City, right, for this guy I had met for a few months, right? We kind of kept in contact here and there. Wasn't thinking anything of it, but literally the day I got out of jail, I went to work for this guy. And like I could never have seen that coming, right? And it's just like again another block on this pyramid that you know what this is real, right? This prayer is really, really powerful and it works. Um, another example. I mean, I could give you plenty, right? I'm sure that you all have examples in your life where it's like like just the overwhelming things that happen that just know that God is real, right? I was listening to, I don't know, Chuck C, I think. And he talked about he was, he had this, he remember, he talked to someone called him, or no, he remembered this random amends that he had to make, right? And he got this feeling like he had to go make that amends right there. Right. He remembered it in the middle of a football game and he was pissed off because he wanted to watch a football game, but he got up and he went and, tried to contact and make this amends. And it just sparked in me that, there was amends I missed to some place I lived and I just, I kind of skipped out of rent and I did end up stealing some stuff before I left. And I remember this and I was like, damn. And it was just some random place I lived in, I rented at Craigslist. And I remember I tried to look through my past emails. This is years later, tried to look through my past emails, text messages. Even tried to drive around the area to try to see if I could remember where it was. And I just couldn't. And I was like, God, I'm willing to make this amends and do whatever I need to do, and wherever you want me, if you want me to make it, like, great, I'm here, and I'm willing. If not, then not. Right again, I always preface my prayers that way, right? Because I don't know, I don't ever pray personally for like me to get things right because I don't know what I want. I don't trust and I don't know what I want, right? I pray for what God wants, right? And if He wants that, then if He wanted me to make that amends, then I knew He would. And my sister owns a bake shop, and she has me help her out, sell cupcakes on the weekends sometimes, at like fairs. So I have to go and set up this table, and I've done this a few times, in this town, um, about a month after I said that prayer, she asked me to do one, and I'm there. I'm walking around with my wife, and my sister gave me a break. She was so nice to give me a break from working for free. And um, and I look over, and the guy is right there, right? The guy that I stole from and didn't pay bail to, and he recognized me, and I recognized him. And I don't know what was going on in his head, right? But the first words I got to say to him were, "I owe you money," right? And like I don't know what he would have said if the tables were turned, right? But it was a great, interaction. But I remember after that, I just had this like there was absolutely nothing anyone could say to me for me to disbelieve that God was real in that moment. Right? It was just absolute proof. And those are God shots, right? And I remember, hearing in the beginning, um, there's no coincidences, there's only God consciousness. Right. And it's amazing. As soon as I was willing to start looking for those things, and I started seeing them everywhere. And I implore you, if you're still hesitant on that thing, right, on whether God's real or not, to start praying and to start seeing if it actually works, right? If that, but if the world starts molding to bring you into a great spot, right? It's just like I can't even tell you where I'm at compared to where I should be, where I think I should be, right? It's just far greater than I ever could have imagined. And I know that it's a direct proportion to prayer. Um, and all these things I've accumulated since I came into Alcoholics Anonymous. If I lost them all today, I would still be absolutely grateful and thankful to God, right? No, they're not mine. I don't deserve any of them. I didn't do anything. Whatever. I had to do some things, but I know that it was all through prayer and outside influence because everything with me, I would have I would never have gotten here, right? It was only because the world just kind of molded towards me, right? And to get me into this spot where it was beneficial to me. All right. And if I lost it all, I'd be absolutely okay, and my faith wouldn't waver. I know that for sure. Yeah, and it was a lot of these spiritual concepts were just like seemed like the exact opposite of what, my brain thought I should say, right? What I should do, right? Like, oh, go make amends to everyone you harmed. Like, no, like why why would I bring up all, like I hurt this person, like leave them alone, right? Why would I want to bring up all the stuff I just did to them? Right? Why would I purposely incriminate myself, right? Like it just seems so um anti everything I believed in, right? But it really works. And it's amazing, right? Um, you know, we we say the Our Father a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, and there's one part of the light, it says, "Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us." And I like how it says, "As we forgive those who trespass against us," right? So it's like, know, my trespasses are forgiven as I forgive others, right? And it's like again, it doesn't seem like that's the way it should work, but I don't know. It's like, if you want a friend, be a friend, right? Like, if I want to be forgiven, then I need to forgive others, right? And I really think that that's part of the reason why our fourth step starts with um, our resentments, right? Who we're mad at, right? And we're supposed to go through this exercise and right why we're mad at them and what parts of us it hurt. And then it recommends to say the sick man's prayer for those people, right? So it's kind of like we're supposed to forgive them, right? Like it kind of gets us to the point where we're forgiving them in that moment. And then later on, it's like, okay, go make amends, right? Like, and when you go and do that, it just kind of breaks away everything, right? A beautiful, beautiful process if you haven't gotten to that point. But I do think that that's why Bill put that first, right? Just so that we can forgive them, because once we forgive them, it's our part's done, right? It just goes in stride with it. Um, and um, I remember throughout my whole first year, I wanted to drink, right? Like there was I knew I wasn't going to, right? I was going to Alcoholics Anonymous. I was reading the big book and going to at whatever meetings I could. And I knew I wasn't going to drink and didn't want to drink, but like there was just this kind of emotion where I wanted it still. And I remember that did go away about a year in to the program. I remember I was in a small room and there was alcohol in the room. And I remember going and but that's the mental obsession, right? This idea where like, I would always want it. I would, go back to it, even though I hadn't drank in a long time. And I remember going to bed, wanting it, even though in the room, and waking up and not wanting it, right? Like there was just that I had lost that want to drink it. And again, that's amazing for someone like me who spent his whole life thinking how I can get it, right? And again, just another powerful moment of prayer, um, and getting rid of that mental obsession. But I didn't focus on that. I wasn't like every day, like, oh, I wanted to drink yesterday, right? I didn't focus on that, right? What did I focus on? Was getting closer to God, right? And I didn't know. I knew I needed God, right? Whatever, we have a threefold disease: physical, mental, spiritual. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. Right. So I didn't have to worry about that mental obsession or the phenomenon craving. What I really had to worry about was getting right with my higher power who would ultimately take those things away. And that's what I did, right? I worried about the spiritual, and I didn't know where to find God. I remember going to Buddhist temples. I remember reading, multiple different religious books, just because that's where they talk about God a lot, right? So, it seems logical in my head that if they're always talking about God, and I should figure it out, right? AA is, pointing me in that direction. And, I lost that desire to drink. Um, Truly, truly a miracle. And I would say that it's only came up about 2 or 3 times. I've been sober since January 20th, 2010. Um, Really, really awesome. And I kind of talked about, how I came to believe the power greater than me could restore me to sanity. And I really was insane, right? Like with all the stuff I did, the way I thought, the way I hurt other people, right? Thinking that there'd be no repercussions, right? And I was really hopeful there wasn't, right? Like the fact that there was a God was like scary to me, right? I really hoped there wasn't, because he could see behind there's no hiding from that, right? He could see behind closed doors, right? He would see all the pain that I caused other people, and I couldn't hide from that. And I just couldn't fathom that. And um, you know, but he is real, and all those things I did, I don't necessarily believe that, God punished me because I did them. I really believe that I was the one punishing myself, right? The fact that I was, running around doing all those things, doing the exact opposite of what everyone told me, right? And hurting all these people and really being just fully self-centered. It wasn't that God just like, oh, I'm going to punish you. It was that I was punishing myself, right? Because these kind of rules, or these moral code rules, are what keeps us safe and alive, right? But when I disregard them is when pain and suffering comes, and it's fully self-inflicted, even though I think in my head it's it's everyone else, but it's really when I'm living that way, then I'm going to get that, right? So I'm the one bringing it upon myself. When I finally made that decision to turn to God, uh, it was truly amazing, right? I was reading the big book. I did wasn't available. Not a lot of meetings were available when I was getting sober. I had a sponsor before I went to jail, and I still have that sponsor today. And when I was in there, I was just reading a big book and doing what it said. And I remember saying that third step prayer and really meaning it, and writing a letter to my sponsor saying, I was about to do the fourth step. And I was willing to do anything, right? Um, I gave, God everything about me, right? I became his soldier. Um, One song I always loved, I think it's a Catholic song, but Here I Am, Lord, right? It's like, the whole premise of the song is like, God's asking for help, and it's like, here I am, right? I feel like that's, it's also like a servant, right? Where in Alcoholics Anonymous, we're all told to do service, right? You gotta do service, right? And when you're new, it is making coffee, it's opening the room, it's putting the chairs away, putting the chairs together. Um, and that's all good, right? Because I was a very shy person, so doing all those sorts of service was good for me, right? Like I didn't want to make coffee for everyone. Like that frightened me to death, right? What if I mess it up, right? Or what if it's not there on time? Or if I had to show up an hour early just to make sure the coffee was ready. No one could beat me, right? All those things were good. Um, but to be of service, is also to be a servant, right? And I didn't, service is a nice word. Like we all like it in AA, but the word servant is, it's I don't know why it just has this kind of negative it just seems so hard, right? To be a servant. And but I realized, like that song says, it's like, here I am, Lord. It's like, I literally wait around each day for God to tell me where he wants me. Here I am, Lord. You know, um, you know, awesome. And it comes up, right? Things come up and I deal with them, and he just kind of points me, right to where I'm supposed to go. That's absolutely amazing. And I love thinking of it as, like a servant in a house, right? He just kind of waits around all day for the master to come home, right? And when the master's not there, he'll dust and he'll clean, do the dishes in the sink, do all the normal stuff that's there, right? But whenever the master comes in the room and says something, he immediately stops whatever he's doing and goes and does that one thing. And that's really cool. And I didn't know how that would come, right? But it's like I remember in the beginning, like, I'm in a meeting and it's like I hear someone share and I get that voice like, you got to go talk to that person afterward. Right. And like, my first thought when I hear that in my head is like, well, someone else is going to, right? Like hopefully someone else does, right? Or like in the beginning, like, oh, they ran out of the room too fast, right? Like, and I learned, right, like to trust that voice, right? Because when that voice said that, I would get up first and go right to them, right? Catch them before they leave and not wait for someone else to talk to them, right? And those people, some of the best relationships I have, right, to be able to do that. Um, yeah, I remember having, I don't know, Eric mentioned a sponsee, right? I remember, I don't know, I think it was a Friday night and I was there and I just had this thought like, I need to go, God wants me to go to a meeting and find someone to help, right? Like, and I just remember having that thought and I got so excited and and again, it was just a thought and I got excited and I went to the meeting and ended up picking up two sponsees that meeting. And, it was just absolutely amazing, right? And to follow those little cues, right? And where they lead you, right? And I don't even know how long it's been since I've known that person. It's been a long time, and it's amazing to what for us to both grow up together, right? Um, and when I I wrote a letter to my sponsor. I want to do the 4 step. And my sponsor wasn't really doing much big book work then, right? But I was just doing what the book said, right? So he didn't really give me any instructions. I did what I did pretty much out of the big book. I also read the 12 and 12, was reading the 12 and 12 also. So I had, uh, I mentioned the seven deadly sins in there. So I was putting I put all those down and where kind of where those as my character defects, right? Um, I had all those, right, in different things. And I know a lot of people don't like to refer to them as sins, right? And Bill put it in the big book as character defects for a reason, right? Because no one wants to think of themselves as a sinner, right? But I know he fitted into the 12 and 12, right? It says sins, and I put them all down and I sent it back to my sponsor and he said put more down, right? And kind of typical. And I remember doing that. And my sponsor did burn it, right? We don't we don't tell people to burn it anymore, but or whatever, he got rid of it. He didn't send it back to me. I was pissed, right? I'm like waiting for this letter to come back, right? I just like put all this out there. And he just wrote back something, and I'm like, my next letter like went back in the mail probably 30 minutes later, like, where's the 4th step, right? And, he had gotten rid of it. But and that was the fifth, right? It was sending that out and opening it up to him. And there was a lot of people I heard on that list, and a lot of them I didn't know how it would be possible, right? There's another God moment. I'm just giving tons of God moments today. I I killed someone drunk driving. So I like, how do you make amends for that, right? Like I didn't know. And my sponsor didn't know, obviously prayed about it. I had no idea what would come up, right? It's like not the type of thing you could just like walk up to someone's house like, hey, sorry I killed your father, right? Like it just doesn't work that way. And I remember I got this letter saying that I was being sued civilly. And I mean, it seems so I was, at that moment, I was so spiritual, right? At the time that I got that letter and I'm like, yes, I get to make amends. Right. And that was the truth, right? Like I had to go and testify and go up to court and be in front of them. And um I didn't think anything about myself in that moment. All I could think about, was whatever however I could help, with the truth right out in the court. But I got to get up there and make amends to these people in open court, right? And absolutely amazing. Um, I forget about that one, like that, that occurred, right? But that was an amazing thing, right? Like that and whatever, whatever. I owe $3 million, right? Like it's like that's never, and like I didn't think much of it. Like in my mind, it's like make it 10, right? It's like impossible. But I remember when in AA, this guy was said to me, Rick, he's like, you should really be trying to pay that back. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, Rick, right? Like that's impossible, right? And he harped on it for me for like about a year. And eventually one day it just ate away at me. And it's like it's right. Like, it is something that I should be trying to pay. And I remember, I got to, a lot of times with these things, right? I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And I'll put it off and I'll say that, that person's wrong and I'll have my reasons as to why I think they're wrong. But eventually the soul went out. And I remember reaching out, against the behest of my wife. I remember reaching out to the lawyers involved and to try to pay that money back, and whatever, make up a payment plan or whatever. And they wouldn't call me back. Tried calling a few times. They didn't want anything to do with me, right? And it wasn't about getting money from me, right? They were trying to get money through insurance and all that sort of stuff. But I'm willing today, right? If something came along, I wouldn't duck and dodge. I would be ecstatic, right? Just like I was when I got that letter that I was being sued, right? That um I would be given the opportunity to get free, to get more free. A lot of my other amends were similar. I was more uh the introverted type instead of the extroverted. I didn't go out and get into fights too often or whatever. I was more of a loner. So my men's were more typical, family, friends, stealing from my brother and returning that money and my family. I remember my sister that night, just like be like, please come home. And I'm just like, nope, can't, right? Like I got me, gotta worry about me. And common theme. And even today I can get into that, right? And it's something I have to continue to watch for. And amazing being able to make all my amends, right? And I made them all, right? And ones that have come up, I've gone back and remade and made them again, right? And once mistakes come up today, right, I deal with them promptly, right? If I wrong someone or uh, was being selfish in a certain way, the moment I realize it, I will go and make those amends quickly, right? Because I know if I don't, then they will just get worse. And it's a really great deterrent because I really don't like making amends, right? So it really behooves me to not be fully self-centered, to have to go and make those. I, a few years ago, I found like a 10-step app that goes through with some questions, and I'm sure a lot of people on here have used different ones and use it right out of the big book and whatever you do, right? But it's good. Like it's such a good practice, right? To be able to go in there and constructively review what was I like spiritually today. Because the I heard it was the hardest thing to self-diagnose is self-deception. And it's so easy for me to kind of get into the point where it's just like, everything's good, right? And I believe it, right? I believe the lies I'm telling myself because I want them to be true. And so, that doing that 10 step at night really kind of opened me up to like, wow, I can't believe I literally reached out to no one today. I was completely in self. I didn't try to help anyone else. Right. And I look at back and like, you watched, 3 episodes of a TV show today. Right. And you could, there was someone you could have reached out to, and I did. Or, to realize the interaction I had where I do owe an amends and I didn't think about it, right? And to deal with them quickly, right? I get it out of myself right away. And then I relieve the other person of that, right? Potentially them having the hatred inside themselves, right? And really, almost causing them to sin, right? Like through my actions, right? Um, and really, really good practice, and I highly recommend it for anyone that isn't doing it on a regular basis. A few years ago, I fell in love with Thomas Keating and centering prayer. I never knew, kind of what the best way to meditate was. I'm sure a lot of people, I go to a meditation meeting or whatever, and that's kind of the only moment we get. But I did really fall in love with these books that kind of went into, kind of just to help with some pointers on how to do it and what the point was. And I remember when I first started reading some of them, it said 20 minutes minimum. It's like to me that was impossible, right? Like I was like trying to do like 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, right? And 20-minute minimum. And uh, you know, it's amazing, right? No matter how busy my life is, right? If I find when I find time to do those things, my life is less busy, right? It's like I literally when I'm not doing meditation and when I'm not as spiritually fit as I could be, I literally waste all my time on BS, right? Worrying about things that will never happen or things that happened in the past that aren't even real anymore, right? That no one's even remembering that don't have any real impact on me helping anyone in the future. And um, so yeah, and if you're finding that you don't have enough time and your life's too busy and you barely can make meetings, my recommendation is something that's worked for me is to start doing 20 minutes of morning meditation and really spending that time with God to clear it away. And it's amazing, right? Like the more spiritual, the more meetings, the more I interact with you and help other sponsees, like everything just like, I think that if I spend less time with my wife, that my relationship with her would be worse. But and it's like a direct correlation. The more time I'm helping other alcoholics and working with sponsees and going to meetings and meditating, the more time I spend doing that, the better my relationship with her is. And again, that's something that's one of those things that's just beyond reason. But it's just what I found to be true. And it's amazing to be able to look at those things objectively today. Um, and absolute blessing to be able to sponsor someone. Right? I think some of my best, some of my most favorite moments in my life are the times when someone's asked me, we've gotten to the point where I've gotten to do a third step with someone, right? For because it's has the potential to it's gonna I actually believe that it is most pivotal moment in their life, right? Even if they don't stay sober, I know from my past experience how powerful prayer is and it works, right? And even if they go back out there and drink, I do believe that prayer is working to bring them back to God, right? And I think that they're going to have a harder time out there when they drink because it is working, right? And their relapses are going to be shorter. but that's really a moment I cherish when I get to, get down on my knees and we get to say that third step prayer together. I always we always read it together first, and I make them take 10 minutes and go over it themselves and be for real that they're ready to make that commitment because it really is so important. It's kind of saying, I'm going to be a servant to God for the rest of my life. Of course, one day at a time, right? But but I mean, come on, guys. It's there's no point in staying sober for just one day, right? Let's be real, right? We know that the goal is permanent sobriety, right? And that's what Alcoholics Anonymous offers. It offers a way for us to stay sober for the rest of our lives, and be happy and free and a useful member. And I get to watch my sponsees grow up and have kids and build houses and get new jobs. And, that's something my sponsor got to watch me do, right? I know my life where it came from to where it is today is seems absolutely surreal. And I get to see that in all my sponsees' lives. And um, just a quick where I'm at, I've never been turned down for a job because of my past history. I'm a felon, never been turned down for a job. I don't know how. Um, I have a house, wife, two kids. One's 2 months old. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing, right? And again, I don't take any credit for this because it's all from Alcoholics Anonymous and from prayer and from dedicating my life to being a servant. And I'm really happy for all of you who are on that journey with me to be a servant. And if you're not, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of work to do, and we could really use your help out there. And I know that your life will be infinitely greater, um, even if it might not, it's not what we see, right? I know it'll be infinitely greater than it could be today. And I know my life can be so much greater, and I can't wait to see what God has in store for me. Even if it's something that I wouldn't think is right, I know it's right? Because I have full faith in God today. It's no longer hope. It's beyond trust. It's just faith, right? It's just I don't even question it or worry about it anymore. He's got everything under control. And thank you guys for having me here, and great to hear you all.